West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy with Chef Justice Putnam. Netrootsradio.com.
Je voudrais du soleil vert, des dentelles et des théières, des photos de bord de mer, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je voudrais de la lumière, comme en Nouvelle-Angleterre. Je veux changer d'atmosphère, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Ma fleur sous la pluie de novembre, tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, il est loin, là je tombe. Nul ne peut nous entendre. Je voudrais du Fred Astaire, revoir un latte Goël.
For more than a week now, we've been hearing that Donald Trump may be indicted by the Manhattan DA's office. And yesterday, Trump himself weighed in. In an all-caps tirade on his social media site Truth Social, the former president said he will be arrested on Tuesday of next week. Even more ominously, he also encouraged his supporters to, quote, protest and take our nation back. And then he doubled down with another post saying, quote, protest, protest, protest. If that all sounds familiar to you, it really should. It is eerily similar to the language Trump used before January 6th and the days leading up to it. And we all know how that ended. And that's why it's important to be extra vigilant about the impact his words could have. But it's also crucial not to take Trump's bait here, because he clearly wants to amplify the drama. That's the whole point. The truth is, Trump's own campaign is denying that he's received any advance notice from prosecutors about an arrest on Tuesday. So for the moment, it doesn't seem like he knows any more than we do. But District Attorney Alvin Bragg has definitely taken note. In an email obtained by NBC News, he told his staff, quote, we do not tolerate attempts to intimidate our office or threaten the rule of law in New York. Pretty strong words from Bragg. When it comes to the reaction from the White House, my bet is you won't hear a lot about Trump's outburst from them. They want to keep the temperature down. But behind the scenes, they're paying close attention, tracking any potential threats, as they always would. That's what they should be doing. And we're going to be watching it very closely here, too. But we should also be clear-eyed about exactly what Donald Trump is trying to do here. As his legal troubles are mounting, his goal is to manufacture outrage and direct it at the Manhattan DA. And so far, some of his allies are giving him a big old helping hand. Everyone from Marjorie Taylor Greene to House Speaker Kevin McCarthy to his former Vice President Mike Pence are on the track, just like Donald Trump wants them to be.
I'm taken aback at the idea of indicting a former president of the United States at a time when there's a crime wave in New York City. That the fact that the Manhattan DA thinks that indicting President Trump is his top priority, I think, just tells you everything you need to know about the radical left in this country. It just feels like a politically charged prosecution here.
Joining me now is House Democratic leader Congressman Hakeem Jeffries of New York. Leader Jeffries, thank you so much for being my first guest on my first show.
So good to be with you, and congratulations on your show.
Thank you so much. Well, I have to start here with Vice President Pence, because this is a guy who the mob tried to hang back on January 6th. He is criticizing the district attorney in those comments instead of Trump's own language, which sounded a lot to me like what we heard around January 6th. What was your reaction when you heard the former vice president's comments?
Well, Vice President Pence knows better, and he has embarrassed himself, and that's unfortunate. You know, George Washington, in his farewell address to the nation, said that the Constitution is sacredly obligatory upon all. That means everyone. That includes former presidents of the United States of America, because in this great country of ours, no one is above the law. That is the defining principle of the Republic and has been the case for 247 years. And so I would urge everyone to just allow the prosecutors to do their job. I'm confident that the myriad of investigations will involve individuals who are professional. They will follow the facts, apply the law, be guided by the Constitution, and then we'll see where these investigations lead.
Now, I know, Leader Jeffries, a carefully worded statement or tweet when I see one. I've written a few of these myself, and I just want to read your tweet that you wrote yesterday in response to these posts from Donald Trump. We live in a democracy. Right-wing extremists who fan the flames of political violence with inflammatory rhetoric are not fit to serve American values over autocracy. Now, you didn't mention Trump there. Was that on purpose, or why not?
Well, it's a reference to both former President Trump and all those who continue to bend the knee to the insurrectionists in chief. You know, one of the more unfortunate things of the events of this weekend continue to reveal that the extreme MAGA Republicans as a group want to defund the FBI, investigate and intimidate law enforcement, and continue to coddle violent insurrectionists who tried to overthrow the government on January 6th in 2021. They clearly have not learned their lesson, and they are doubling and tripling down on their extremism, even when that extremism could have potentially violent and deadly consequences, as it did during the insurrection.
Now, one of those people who I would argue was trying to coddle or echo some of these comments is Speaker Kevin McCarthy. And I just want to read to you a tweet that he also posted yesterday. He said, I'm directing relevant committees to immediately investigate if federal funds are being used to subvert our democracy by interfering in elections with politically motivated prosecutions. So, Leader Jeffries, what was your reaction to Speaker of the House, your partner at times, and his reaction to Trump's post?
Well, I strongly disagree with that statement, and it's not clear to me what committee the Speaker may be referring to. Perhaps the so-called Weaponization Committee, which is really more appropriately named the Committee to Protect Insurrectionists. And that is what we've seen from the extreme MAGA Republicans as it relates to the 118th Congress. Instead of the House majority focusing on the economy, focusing on inflation, focusing on job creation, focusing on health care, they continue to peddle conspiracy theories led by this so-called Weaponization Committee and the Oversight Committee, as opposed to trying to find common ground with House Democrats to try to make life better for everyday Americans. But we're going to continue to put people over politics. We're going to continue to focus on lower costs and better paying jobs and safer communities, and we will continue to defend our democracy.
Well, those weaponization committees may not be working out exactly as they planned, but if Speaker McCarthy moves forward with these committees to investigate the work of the Manhattan DA, well, what will you do with advised Democratic members? Will they participate in these, or how would you approach that?
Well, I have full confidence in the leader of the House Judiciary Committee, Jerry Nadler, the leader of the Oversight Committee, Representative Jamie Raskin, and the leader on the Democratic side of the Weaponization Committee, Stacey Plaskett, to continue to make sure that we are upholding the rule of law, doing our congressional duties and responsibilities, but also pushing back against the extreme MAGA Republican overreach that we continue to see and have seen over the first few months of this new Congress.
Now, the Washington Post reported last week that you have been working on a truce of sorts with Kevin McCarthy out of respect for the House as a functioning institution, and of course because you actually want to get some things done. First of all, is that report true?
Yes, we've had a positive, forward-looking relationship. That doesn't mean that we aren't going to strongly disagree with each other, as we have with respect to the former twice impeached president of the United States of America. But we can agree to disagree without being disagreeable and always try to find common ground for the good of the institution, the Congress, the country, as part of an effort that Democrats have engaged in over the last several years, led by President Biden, Speaker Pelosi, and Leader Schumer, to try to find bipartisan common ground whenever and wherever possible in order to make life better for everyday Americans. We've been able to do that in a significant way when we had the gavels. I hope to be able to continue to do that now.
Now, I'm not going to ask you to make any legal predictions here. I watched you closely. I know you would never do that. But it's pretty clear that Trump supporters in Congress, specifically Marjorie Taylor Greene and others, are seeing this as an empowering political moment for them. And I just want to read you one more tweet. This is from Marjorie Taylor Greene, where she said, if the Manhattan DA indicts President Trump, he will ultimately win even bigger than he is already going to win. First of all, do you agree with the notion that indictments would help Donald Trump politically?
Well, the last person that I'm going to lean into political insight from is Marjorie Taylor Greene, although I should note that she has become one of the most important House Republicans in the Congress, and for all we know, could be on the presidential ticket as the vice presidential candidate for Donald Trump. That is how important she has become to the extreme MAGA Republican House majority in the Congress right now. But that is also one of the reasons why the American people should be concerned, because it is an extreme agenda that doesn't want to deal with the issues of importance to working families and middle-class folks and all those who aspire to be part of the middle class. That's the difference between House Republicans and House Democrats. We will continue to focus on kitchen table, bread and butter issues of importance: the economy, jobs, health care, protecting Social Security, protecting Medicare, and building that economy that works for everyday Americans.
Well, it wasn't just Marjorie Taylor Greene, although if she's on the ticket, that'll be an interesting, slightly crazy thing. But Lindsey Graham and some others have also suggested it could help Trump politically. So I guess you're a very savvy political guy. How do you prevent this from helping Trump politically? Any of these legal potential indictments or the legal swirl?
Well, the American people rejected political extremism all throughout the country in the most recent midterm elections in 2022. And it's my expectation that they will continue to do so moving forward. And, you know, it is unfortunate that the extreme has become mainstream for this version of the Republican Party in the House and in the Senate and all across America. We'll litigate that case any day of the week as we move forward, because it's a case that I believe Democrats will win. We're on the right side of the American people, the right side of American values, and on the right side of history.
It is Monday, the 20th of March of 2023, and you are in West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. I am your chef de cuisine, Justice Putnam. Gunner the English Bulldog is our snoozing sous chef, and our daily special is River City Hash Mondays, because that's what we do right after the weekends. We put a hash together. Yeah, well, you know why. Hey, how was your weekend? A little bit of drama there, huh? Are we going to see an indictment tomorrow? I'm not so sure. You know, that's Donald Trump going off. And as I specified on my appearance on the Tim Corrimal show, which broadcast before K-Grow in the morning, about a half hour before K-Grow in the morning is when it ends. But nonetheless, this whole brouhaha occurred because Trump had seen an MSNBC report late at night, and where a guest just had ruminated about whether Trump would be put in handcuffs and photographed, you know, when he's booked. And they didn't say when he was going to be booked. It was the hypothetical. Oh, yeah, well, you know, this is the standard course procedure that we follow. When you're indicted, you have to be arrested, and then you get fingerprinted, and you get a picture taken. And that sent Donald Trump off with this all-cap tirade, calling on his mob to descend upon New York and cause some mayhem. Oh, I know he said protest. But it's going to be wild. Make it wild. God. And he gets to continue on. Anybody else in this country, after all of that, would be stopped. As they like to say, with impunity. But apparently with this guy, I can't really even imagine a president, including Richard Nixon, getting away with any of this. I don't get it. How come this guy? Is it because the Republican Party has become wholly the party of mobsters and crooks and mobsters? I think so. They always defend their own, don't they? Well, I was just thinking, we're never as filled with fervor when we defend our own. In fact, we don't defend our own. Any accusation that's out there that might be legitimate, whether it gets proven or not, you're out on your ear because it just looks bad, Okay. All right. So they got lots of creeps, and they got lots of crooks, and they got lots of mobsters. But for some reason, we're the reason that for some reason, I like that. For some reason, we are the reason. It's Monday. Regardless, for some reason, we are the cause. We being the democratic, liberal part of the world. We are the cause of the destruction of society. Well, their idea of destruction of society is that they don't have their knee on the throat of somebody or something else. Okay, it's all unbridled power. I want my unbridled power. Give it to me. So what else happened? There's some sort of like college championship game going on, isn't there? Yeah. Match. Series of games. Now I guess are we already into the Sweet 16 now? Everything's been decided from this last weekend? I believe so. I used to follow college sports a lot more fervently. When I was much younger. Yes, not so much now. Anyway, on a personal note, my sister is going to be taking my mom into the doctor's today. She's been getting some, I call it puddling, but her feet have been swollen and they kind of go down a little bit, then back up. So she's retaining water, which is not good because, she does have heart issues. So made sure it wasn't, like a blood clot. Generally when you have swelling down in your extremities like that, and she had a hip replacement, there would have been an issue of blood clotting and stuff. It would have been on one side. But she was kind of swelling up on both, so did the mitigating practices to see if we could get them to come down, get your feet above your heart, move around a bit more, that sort of thing. And they don't really seem, so she may need to have one medicine that keeps the fluids off of her lungs and whatnot building up. So might have to adjust that. Increase that, I guess. So we'll see. But always a concern, when parents get to a certain age, especially at our age. If you have parents, you know what I mean. Man, jeez. One nice thing, I guess it's nice, having like a young mom, like my mom. She was a teenage mom when she had me. And now when we're old, we're both old together. Thanks, Mom. Okay. All right. So we got that going for us, which is, can be nice. Well, I guess we could keep going on and on, but why don't we give you a rundown of what we have in store for you here in the Bistro Cafe of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, River City Hash Mondays. Yes, Pence did embarrass himself with his defense of Trump, but he, I I think he's known as a pussy-ass bitch wimp, maybe. On the rest of the menu, a Pentagon study has found high rates of cancer among military pilots and ground crews. New York Community Bank has agreed to buy a significant chunk of the failed Signature Bank in a $2.7 billion, that's with a B, billion-dollar deal. And Minnesota regulators said the nuclear power plant leak 4 weeks ago did not require public notice. Oh, really? I wonder why. After the break, we move to the chef's table where Australian fintech firm Latitude Group said it had taken its platforms offline as the cyber attack detected last week remained active. And justice ministers from around the world will meet in London today to build support for the International Criminal Court after it issued a warrant for Vladimir Putin. All that and more on West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Bon appetit. Near the bottom of our homepage at netrootsradio.com, to the right of the page is the chat room link, and the chat room is monitored by Kelly Lincoln, so go ahead and chat. Across from that chat room link to the left, near the bottom of our homepage at netrootsradio.com, is the link to our Patreon page. If you could become a recurring Patreon of Netroots Radio, it really does help us pay our bills. And I got to tell you, there's quite a few of them to keep this powerhouse of resistance resisting, as it has been doing for a dozen years plus now. And thank you for your generosity out there, for allowing us to fulfill our civic duty as the founders originally intended. If you could send us what you might spend on an espresso-type coffee drink, which a few people have done for quite a while, if you could send that to us once a month, we're able to pool those funds and then put a big dent in those bills as they keep coming in. And once again, thank you for your generosity. If you would like to follow Netroots Radio on Twitter, Mastodon, and Spoutable, you can do so at Netroots Radio. Tom takes care of that. Thanks, Tom. Follow me on Twitter, Mastodon, and Spoutable. I post at Justice Putnam, by the way. I post the show notes and links diary on Daily Co's 10 minutes before showtime, and then try to get that posted up on all those social media platforms. But regardless, do find those show notes and links, because that's where you can find the reporters and the articles that we are drawing our great inspiration. So there you go. You can follow the show on Twitter at CookbookWest, and please do pick up podcasts by way of Spreaker, Stitcher, TuneIn, iHeart, YouTube, iTunes, and wherever podcasts can be found. They're everywhere. All right, this first offering here in the Bistro Cafe of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, River City Ash Mondays, is out of the Associated Press by Tara Kopp. A Pentagon study has found high rates of cancer among military pilots, and for the first time has shown that ground crews who fuel, maintain, and launch those aircraft are also getting sick. The data has long been sought by retired military aviators who have raised alarms for years about the number of air and ground crew members they knew who had cancer. They were told that earlier military studies had found they were not at greater risk than the general U.S. population. Well, that's nice to know. I guess the general U.S. population has a lot of cancer, I guess. Anyway, in its year-long study of almost 900,000 service members who flew on or worked on military aircraft between 1992 and 2017, the Pentagon found that aircrew members had an 87% higher rate of melanoma and a 39% higher rate of thyroid cancer, while men had a 16% higher rate of prostate and women a 16% higher rate of breast cancer. Overall, the air crews had a 24% higher rate of cancer of all types. The study showed ground crews had a 19% higher rate of brain and nervous system cancers, a 15% higher rate of thyroid cancer, a 9% higher rate of kidney or renal cancers, while women had a 7% higher rate of breast cancer. The overall rate of cancers for all types was 3% higher. There was some good news reported as well. Both ground and air crews had far lower rates of lung cancer, and air crews also had lower rates of bladder and colon cancers. The data compared the service members with the general U.S. population after adjusting for age, sex, and race. The Pentagon said the new study was one of the largest and most comprehensive to date. An earlier study had looked at just Air Force pilots and found some higher rates of cancer, while this one looked across all services and at both air and ground crews. Even with the wider approach, the Pentagon cautioned that the actual number of cases was likely to be even higher because of gaps in the data, which it said it would work to remedy. Ken Sweet of the Associated Press brings us this next offering here in the Bistro Cafe of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, River City Hash Mondays. New York Community Bank has agreed to buy a significant chunk of the failed Signature Bank in a $2.7 billion deal, the Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation said last night. The 40 branches of Signature Bank will become Flagstar Bank starting today. Flagstar is one of New York Community Bank's subsidiaries. The deal will include the purchase of $38.4 billion in Signature Bank's assets, a little more than a third of Signature's total when the bank failed a week ago. The FDIC says $60 billion in Signature Bank loans will remain in receivership and are expected to be sold off in time. Signature Bank was the second bank to fail in this banking crisis, roughly 48 hours after the collapse of Silicon Valley Bank. Signature, based in New York, was a large commercial lender in the tri-state area, but in recent years gotten into cryptocurrencies as a potential growth business. After Silicon Valley Bank failed, depositors became nervous about Signature Bank's health due to its high amount of uninsured deposits, as well as its exposure to crypto and other tech-focused lending. By the time it was closed by regulators, Signature was the third largest bank failure in U.S. history. The FDIC says it expects Signature Bank's failure to cost the Deposit Insurance Fund $2.5 billion, but that figure may change as regulators sell off assets. The Deposit Insurance Fund is paid for by assessments on banks, and taxpayers do not bear the cost when a bank fails. Michael Phillis and M&K Biraben of the Associated Press brings us this final offering here in the Bistro Cafe part of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Minnesota regulators knew 4 months ago that radioactive waste had leaked from a nuclear power plant in Monticello, but they did not announce anything about the leak until this week. The delay in notifying the public about the November leak raised questions about public safety and transparency, but industry experts said there was never a public health threat. They said Xcel Energy voluntarily notified state agency and reported the leak of tritium to the NRC soon after it was confirmed that the leak of 400,000 gallons of radioactive water never reached a threshold that would have required public notification. This is something that we struggle with because there is such concern with anything that is nuclear, said Victoria Mittling, a spokesperson for the Nuclear Regulatory Commission. The concern is very, very understandable. That is why I want to make extra clear the fact that the public in Minnesota, the people, the community near the plant was not and is not in danger. State officials said that while they knew of the leak in November, they waited to get more information before making a public announcement. We knew there was a presence of tritium in one monitoring well. However, Xcel had not yet identified the source of the leak and its location. Minnesota Pollution Control Agency spokesperson Michael Rafferty said on Thursday last, "Now that we have all the information about where the leak occurred, how much was released into groundwater, and that contaminated groundwater had moved beyond the original location, we are sharing this information." Well, isn't that nice? Now, tritium is a radioactive isotope of hydrogen that occurs naturally in the environment and is a common byproduct of nuclear plant operations. It emits a weak form of beta radiation that does not travel very far and cannot penetrate human skin, according to the NRC. Edwin Lyman, director of nuclear power plant safety with the Union of Concerned Scientists, said a significant health risk would only occur if people consumed fairly high amounts of tritium. That risk is contained if the plume stays on the company's site, which Xcel Energy and Minnesota officials said is the case. If regulatory officials are sure it did not move off-site, people shouldn't have to worry about their safety, he said, adding that companies usually take action when on-site monitoring wells detect elevated levels of contaminants like tritium. Mittling said there was no official requirement for nuclear power plants to report all tritium leaks to the Nuclear Regulatory Commission. Instead, Xcel Energy had previously agreed to report certain tritium leaks to the state. When Xcel Energy shares information with the state, it also shares it with the Commission. Well, that brings us to our break. And how about we do that? So when we get back from that break, we will go through weather from around the world, and we will finish up with the stories that we have curated for you today. You're listening to West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, and we will be right back.
You are listening to netrootsradio.com.
Please hang up and try again.
From a point at sea to the circles of your mind, a new force is at work for planetary transformation. New radio for a new Earth.
This is Take Two Movie Review. I'm Clinton Johnston. This week, Down to Earth. Warning, 2 tiny spoilers. So I'm having this problem. I keep looking for light escapist fare and keep running into books, comics, TV, and movies that want to talk to me about how horrible this world is. Childhood friends and movie geeks Scott Beck and Brian Woods are back with their take on the dinosaur monster survival thriller. 65 throws us back 65 million years ago, where Mills, Adam Driver, is a space pilot on a 2-year round trip hauling some cryosleep passengers. That's 2 years away from his sick daughter, but the job will fund her care. Sadly, asteroids damage the ship and it crashes on prehistoric Earth, the only survivors being our man Mills and a young girl, Koa, played by Ariana Greenblatt. Their escape ship is 17 kilometers away through a primeval jungle where just about every dinosaur, bug, and plant wants to kill and eat everyone else, including our duo, hence the rest of the film. Beck and Woods have said that in their horror movies, they like to combine high-concept threats and relatable emotional stakes, like in their teen survival film Nightlight, which looks at both teen suicide and the desire to fit in. 65 returns the duo both to the adversarial forest of Nightlight and the being hunted experience of A Quiet Place. It isn't horror, but the physical survival gauntlet is paired with the challenge of emotional survival, as Mills must overcome being separated from his daughter and, tiny spoiler number 1, as Koa eventually learns that her parents have died in the crash. Tiny spoiler number 2, that bright light in the sky at the beginning of the third act, well, that's prehistory's most famous theorized asteroid coming to end the Cretaceous period. So, in 65, aliens land on Earth, and what do they find? A planet full of beings killing each other in their desperate struggle for survival, who do not notice an impending environmental Armageddon that you can literally see coming. Well played, guys, and thanks a lot. This has been Take Two Movie Review. I'm Clinton Johnston. Catch up with us at take2moviereview.com and feed us back on our channel on YouTube.
What would happen if a gigantic asteroid started hurtling towards Earth? Would we all be headed for impending doom like the dinosaurs some 66 million years ago?
Well, we might not go the way of the dinosaurs after all. Last September, NASA's Double Asteroid Redirection Test, or DART, a spacecraft the size of a golf cart, smashed into a small asteroid called Dimorphos, actually altering its trajectory around another asteroid called Didymos in our first ever test of planetary defense.
Oh my gosh.
Oh, wow. Awaiting visual confirmation.
And we have impact. We triumph for humanity in the name of planetary defense.
Hailed as a, no pun intended, smashing success, no less than 5 studies in the scientific journal Nature get into the nitty-gritty of how exactly our celestial gut punch worked.
What a moment. Very few words can really capture this moment. This is beautiful to watch.
I'm Talika Bose, our senior multimedia editor at Scientific American. I'm here with Lee Billings, our senior editor for Space and Physics, who will try to answer some questions I'm sure we all have. Hey, Lee.
Hey, Talika.
Okay, so there's a lot of stuff to sift through. One of the new studies details how this collision altered the path of Dimorphos through space, shortening the time it takes to orbit Didymos by 33 minutes. So, Lee, how did this work?
Right. Ideally, and we'll get into actuality in a moment, this is as simple as playing pool. Shoot one billiard ball into another, and the target ball goes flying. The more momentum you can transfer, the more motion you get. So you want to hit near dead center. And in DART's case, it was targeted for the leading sunward side of Dimorphos, which it struck at a speed of more than 14,000 miles per hour. That's about 3/4 the speed of General Zod's spaceship in Zack Snyder's Man of Steel movie?
No. Kneel before Zod.
Okay, so now tell us about the 2 asteroids.
Yes, the 2 asteroids. Dimorphos is what we call a moonlet of the bigger asteroid Didymos. Sometimes I call Dimorphos Diddy Moon, just because of that, right? And that helps with gauging DART's effects. Think of Dimorphos a bit like the second hand on a clock, where Didymos is the hour hand, or the clock itself. It's easier to see small changes by watching how the smaller object moves.
So, to look at how amazing this is, let's take a look at the size of Dimorphos. How big is it exactly, and how far away was it?
So Dimorphos is about as big and heavy as the Great Pyramid. It's also about as big as the Roman Colosseum.
Okay, that's pretty big.
But for those of us more steeped in modernity, I like to just say it's about twice the size of a standard football field. And it weighed about an estimated 11 billion pounds.
Whoa.
Whereas DART is just a 1,260-pound spacecraft about the size and weight of a dairy cow. And the fact that DART made a dent at all really comes down to its high-velocity impact, which we already said was about 14,000 miles per hour. And all this took place after a deep space voyage to the impact point, more than 7 million miles from Earth.
So that's like a dairy cow smashing into a Great Pyramid?
Basically. It gets messy.
Huh. Well, let's get back to the science. We know that getting more details is helping astronomers understand why this crash was so successful. What are some of the new details around the impact that have been found, and what surprised scientists? What was NASA's original goal here?
That's a great question, Talika, and the answer is that the surprise was how well it worked. NASA's official criterion for success was shifting Dimorphos's orbit by just 73 seconds. Initial predictions, if it was actually a billiard ball, for instance, all solid material, predictions were that maybe DART would nudge it off by about 7 minutes. Instead, we got 33 minutes.
Oh.
Yeah. And that difference is due to Dimorphos not being a billiard ball at all. It's a loosely bound rubble pile, as DART's final closing images showed. So when DART slammed into it, it ejected a huge plume, a long tail of debris containing more than 2 million pounds of stuff, which imparted recoil, basically, to Didymos. It's a bit like a kick from a shotgun.
Oh, wow. Okay, that really helps me visualize it a little bit more. So DART was this $330 million spaceship the size of a golf cart, and it was completely obliterated by this asteroid in a matter of mere microseconds. Scientists seem pretty confident that this was a, smashing success, but what else would we need in order to ensure that any more dangerous asteroids headed for the Earth don't obliterate us?
Great question, Talika. What we really need to have is better situational awareness. How many of these objects are out there? What are they made of? Where are they?
And who's working on that now?
Lots of different people. The key is to get a catalog of different sizes of objects, their different orbits, maybe even what they're made of, and figure out which ones are the most threatening. So in terms of certain near-term projects, we've got Hera is the first to mention. That's a project from the European Space Agency. It's named after the Greek goddess who was married to Zeus, I believe, kind of the queen of the gods.
The queen.
The queen.
Mm-hmm.
Now, Hera was originally supposed to arrive about the same time as DART at Dimorphos and Didymos, but instead, due to delays, it is now not launching until late next year. It's going to arrive sometime in 2026, but that's still going to tell us a whole lot more about the aftermath of this epochal impact. Now, there are other things to mention as well. One project I'm excited about is NASA's NEO Surveyor, the Near Earth Object Surveyor Space Telescope. That is an infrared space telescope that's meant to launch maybe sometime in 2028. And it will be a very big step towards creating this catalog of objects and getting a better sense of what's really out there and what the threats are. And on the ground, there's something similar too, the Vera C. Rubin Observatory. One thing that's very important for this mission is it will be doing the same kind of work from the ground. It will be taking these full panoramic high-resolution images of the sky multiple times per night, each and every night, making almost a high-definition movie of the heavens above. And it'll be able to see little points of light moving around, some of which could be Earth-threatening asteroids.
Oh, wow. And then that's named after Vera Rubin, right?
Indeed. One of the discoverers of dark matter, I believe, right?
Yes. We also know that researchers, with the help of amateur astronomers, are continuing to comb through the DART data to find out more about the physics, geology, and chemistry of these two asteroids. Lee, what are you looking forward to the most to finding out in the near future?
Well, honestly, I kind of consider Didymos and Dimorphos a little done and dusted. We've already smacked the space rock. We've seen what's happened. I'm interested in getting this catalog. I'm interested in knowing more about the properties of a wide diversity of asteroids, because it may not be a rubble pile that comes at us every time. What if it's a big ball of metal? What if it's made of ice? We don't know.
Yes, that's true.
So clearly the answer is to just smack more cows into pyramids, to send out more of these sorts of missions and get a sense of what happens when we wallop things really hard in the solar system. That said, I have to say I don't think this is going to be enough to save us. There's a lot of situations where something could still hit us real hard and fast, and DART wouldn't save us.
I will definitely rest easy.
I hope you do.
Thanks for listening to Science Quickly. I'm Talika Bose.
And I'm Lee Billings.
Science Quickly is produced by me, Talika Bose, Jeffrey Del Vizio, and Kelso Harper. Don't forget to subscribe to Scientific American wherever you get your podcasts.
And head to scientificamerican.com for in-depth science news and analysis.
Wake up and text. Text and eat. Text and catch the bus. Text and miss your stop. Wait. Text and be late to work.
Sorry, I'm late.
Text and work. Text and pretend to work. Text and act surprised when someone calls you out for not working.
Who, me?
Text and meet up with a friend you haven't seen in forever.
Hi. Oh, hey.
Text and complain that they're on their phone the whole time. Text and listen to them complain that you're on your phone the whole time. Text and whatever. But when you get behind the wheel, give your phone to a passenger. Put it in the glove box. Just don't text and drive. Visit StopTextsStopWrecks.org. A public service announcement brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and the Ad Council.
Hi, I'm Tom Hartman, and since you're listening to netrootsradio.com, show your progressive side and go to the donate button on the bottom of the homepage. It's progressives like you who power Netroots Radio and keep the progressive message beaming everywhere 24 hours a day. Just go to our donate button at the bottom of netrootsradio.com. Thank you for keeping progressive radio at full power.
Exciting news, people! Utopia is on the rise. Space Commander Elon Musk has announced that His Magnificence, i.e. him, intends to construct his very own private town on 3,500 acres of farmland near his new Tesla plant southeast of Austin, Texas. More than a town, Musk explains that he will create utopia in Texas, promising an ecological paradise where his Tesla workers can live and do fun things like swimming, pickleball, and paying rent to him. The gabillionaire is certainly rich enough to erect his own Muskopolis, but alas, the Utopia name is already taken. Indeed, I've been to Utopia, Texas, a small town west of San Antonio that was founded in 1855 by, cover your ears, Elon, Swiss socialists. Of course, history shows that a company town is ruled by the company, not by residents, much less socialists. And Musk has made clear at Tesla, Twitter, etc., that his personal whims rule over workers, consumers, our environment, and even truth. Which brings us to that ecological workers' paradise he's promising. Even as one arm of his empire was extolling his vision of a Garden of Eden situated along the beauty of the Colorado River, another arm was scheming to pollute it. Musk is asking Texas corporate control regulators to let him use the site to dump 140,000 gallons a day of his industrial wastewater into the Colorado. Excuse me, but that turns Elon's ecological paradise into a fraud. Worse, it adds up to Musk pouring 50 million gallons a year of his waste into the river, fouling the main water source for dozens of towns and hundreds of farms downstream. This is Jim Hightower saying Musk wants to extend the long sordid history in our country of company town hucksters, and his latest Texas scam is proof that we should never trust a billionaire promising us paradise. Howdy-ho, folks, and thanks for tuning in to my Hightower radio commentaries. And guess what? There's even more Hightower waiting for you online. Subscribers to my Substack newsletter, Jim Hightower's Lowdown, get commentaries, articles, interviews with progressive sparklies, live events, historical nuggets, and more. Go to jimhightower.substack.com to sign up, and you'll get more. That's jimhightower.substack.com.
I'm Rick Smith, and this is Labor History in 2. On this day in labor history, the year was 1854. That was the day that the founders of what became the Republican Party met in Ripon, Wisconsin. The idea was to form a new party, opposed to the Southern labor system based on slavery. That July, the Republicans held their first convention in Michigan. Their motto became free soil, free labor, free men. But as historian Eric Foner has explained, proclaiming the superiority of free labor was easy. Implementing that vision proved more troublesome. Women and free black residents living in the North often found it difficult, if not impossible, to find safe, good-paying jobs in the so-called free labor system. 2 years after the new party was founded, Republicans ran their first presidential candidate, John C. Fremont. Fremont was a military man, explorer, and map maker of the American West. He carried 11 northern states, but failed to win the presidency. The next election, Republicans nominated Abraham Lincoln. Abraham Lincoln won 18 northern states, and for the first time, a Republican sat in the White House. With the victory of a free labor candidate, the country stood on the brink of civil war. The question of slave labor would be settled on the battlefield. In his first address to Congress, President Lincoln declared, "Labor is prior to and independent of capital. Capital is only the fruit of labor and could have never existed if labor had not first existed. Labor is the superior of capital and deserves much the higher consideration." Given the thoughts of the first Republican president, could you imagine a leader in the Republican Party making such a statement today?
Thank you for accompanying us here to the Chef's Table at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, River City Hash Mondays. We always begin weather from around the world along the banks of the Rogue River, in the Rogue River Valley of Southern Oregon on the west coast of the continental United States of America, where it is currently 38 degrees Fahrenheit, mostly cloudy conditions. Looking to have a high in the mid-50s, a little bit warmer than yesterday, and we did have quite a bit of rain over the weekend, which was quite nice. And as I said, mostly cloudy, and we'll have partly cloudy this afternoon. Winds will be out of the west-southwest at 5 to 10 miles per hour. Partly cloudy skies overnight with lows in the upper 20s to low 30s, winds light and variable. Partly cloudy tomorrow with highs in the low 60s. Winds out of the east-northeast at 5 to 10 miles per hour. And it looks like we'll have some dry conditions, at least for today and tomorrow. And then another week or more of rain with a bit of snow mixed in somewhere along the next 7-10 days. So I guess we'll look forward to that too. Looks like pollen is still rated as none here in our little town of Rogue River. The air quality index for the region is in the good range at 40 parts per million, and the daytime UV index is moderate at level 3. Barometric pressure is rising at 29.92 inches. Visibility is at 8 miles, and relative humidity is at 82%. Weather from around the world is brought to you by a crowd of crowdsourced weather stations that a crowd crowdsources from around the world. London is 55 degrees with light rain. Paris is 58 and mostly cloudy. Rome is 55 degrees and mostly cloudy with a electrical disruption advisory, meaning they're going to have lightning. Kyiv is 50 degrees and mostly cloudy. Kabul is 51 and fair. Hong Kong is 72 and partly cloudy. Tokyo is 58 degrees and partly cloudy. Sydney, Australia is 65 and merely cloudy. San Francisco, California is 50 degrees and partly cloudy. And New York is 40 degrees Fahrenheit and sunny. And that is weather from around the world, brought to you by a crowd of crowdsourced weather stations that a crowd crowdsources from around the world. Rashida Swaminathan and Himanshi Akand of Reuters brings us this first amuse-bouche here at the Chef's Table at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy River City Hash Mondays. Australian fintech firm, a finance tech firm, Latitude Group Holdings Limited said today it had taken its platforms offline as the cyber attack that was detected last week remained active, adding the federal police is investigating the incident. Latitude, which provides consumer finance services to retailers Harvey Norman and JB Hi-Fi, said the attack appeared well organized and that the company would resume services gradually over the coming days. Last week, the firm said personal information, mostly driver's license copies or license numbers of about 330,000 customers and applicants, was stolen. Several Australian firms have reported cyber attacks over the past few months, and experts say this is due to an understaffed cybersecurity industry in the country. Latitude said the Australian Federal Police and the Australian Cybersecurity Centre were looking into the attack. Latitude shares have not traded since March 15th, a day before the company first disclosed the cyber attack.
Je te donne c'est mon amour pour la vie entière. La promesse de me trouver à tes genoux. Aussitôt que tu m'appelles, rester toujours fidèle. C'est tout, c'est tout. Je te donne tous mes printemps, mes étés de mer, mes automnes quand les feuilles tombent partout. Si ce n'est pas une bonne affaire, je te donne tous mes hivers.
Alistair Smoot, Michael Holden, and Kylie McClellan of Reuters brings us this final amuse-bouche here at the Chef's Table at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. The International Criminal Court had to take action against Russian President Vladimir Putin over war crimes, but the move was a somber one and not a moment for backslapping, the organization's chief prosecutor, Kamir Khan, said today. Last Friday, the ICC accused Putin of war crimes of illegally deporting hundreds of children from Ukraine. Moscow rejects the charges, calling the move unacceptable and saying it had no legal force in Russia, which is not an ICC member. It's a moment not for triumphalism, not for any backslapping, Khan told international justice ministers meeting in London to discuss scaling up support for the ICC. It is really a very sad occasion and a very somber occasion that for the first time ever, judges of the International Criminal Court, of any court, have felt it necessary to issue warrants against a leader and senior state officials from a permanent member of the UN Security Council. Russia has not concealed a program under which it has brought thousands of Ukraine children to Russia, but represents it as a humanitarian campaign to protect orphans and children abandoned in the conflict zone. I say repatriate the children, return the children, reunite the children, Khan said. If there is any semblance of truth to the utterances that this is for the sake of children, instead of giving them a foreign passport, return them to the countries of their nationality. Ukraine's Prosecutor General Andriy Kostin told the meeting his office had launched investigations into more than 72,000 incidents of alleged war crimes and would soon sign an agreement to establish an ICC field office in Ukraine. Getting a suspect into the dock of the ICC could be a challenge, Kostin said. Therefore, now the burden is on the states to closely cooperate with the court. Chinese President Xi Jinping flew to Moscow today, the first national leader to shake Putin's hand since the warrant was issued, and with Beijing saying the warrant reflected double standards on the ICC's behalf. Britain has pledged $1.2 million U.S. to the ICC this year, and the Justice Ministry said other countries were expected to pledge financial support during the conference, which is being hosted by Britain and the Netherlands. The funding will go towards training for investigators to examine war crimes, as well as psychological and practical support for the victims, the ministry said. Well, that brings us to the end of our broadcast period for the day, but you do know Netroots Radio broadcasts on, and we will meet up here tomorrow for Tarrytown Chowder Tuesdays. So do stay tuned to Netroots Radio all day and all night for all the breaking news as it breaks, and we will meet up here tomorrow, right here in West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Bon appetit.
Je voudrais du soleil vert, des dentelles et des théâtres, des photos de bord de mer, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je voudrais de la lumière, comme en Nouvelle-Angleterre. Je veux changer d'atmosphère, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Robe à fleurs, sous la pluie de novembre, tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, qu'il est loin, là je tombe. Nul ne peut nous entendre. Je voudrais du Fred Astaire, revoir un latte Goël. Je voudrais toujours te plaire dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je veux déjeuner par terre, comme au long de golfe clair, t'embrasser les yeux ouverts dans mon jardin d'hiver. Pluie de novembre, tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, il est loin, là je tombe. Nul ne peut nous entendre. Ba-da-da-dum-di-da-dum. 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 Dans mon jardin d'hiver. Ba-da-da-dum-di-da-dum. 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 Dans mon jardin d'hiver. Dans mon jardin d'hiver. Dans mon jardin d'hiver.